What's happening? Happy Friday morning. Welcome back, or welcome to the Human Performance Project with Adam Benjamin Coleman. The HPP with your boy ABC. You are looking at Loki. Loki is my motorcycle, a 1995 Suzuki Savage LS 650. Actually, 652 cc's. So anyway, this bike runs well. I just decided to start making a few little modifications, not knowing anything really about motorcycles at the time or the compatibility issues that one can run into when you start to look at the differences in bikes, makers, models, all that good stuff. So what started out as replacing a broken throttle cable, which in this style of Makuni carburetor runs down and pulls vertically to open the throttle body, right? So that was somewhat challenging at first, but while I was doing it, I decided I wanted to replace grips, and I was going to do the mirrors and the levers and the handlebars and just the aesthetic stuff on the front end that was going to be real easy to replace, right? Fucking wrong, bro. It was not. There are 7/8 and 1-inch handlebars. That I get, that's easy enough. But the plug configurations for different models, as far as 8-pin, 9-pin, 6-pin, not the same compatibility. Same thing is true of pretty much all of the accessories around the bike. Even grips, and making sure that it's a grip that has the throttle tube and is, a single cable throttle, not an electric throttle or a dual cable system, is necessary. Making sure that when you're replacing the levers, does it have a sensor attached to it that is occupied by a plug that then ties into the harness to communicate to your brake lights and everything else? Are the levers the same pivot point configuration? This, that, the other thing. There's so many different things. Mirrors, no different, same thing. And everything that I got at first was wrong. I had to end up sending back. And because you really can't do anything but shop online, I don't get to see any of this in person and put my sweaty little hands on it and know that it's going to fit. So I'm kind of eyeballing it and then getting it, seeing that it won't work, having to send it back, dealing with all of the fun that comes with customer service and return policies with that. So things got complicated real quick. And then the more I went into it, the more I started to do things like, well, I'm working on the carburetor, I might as well rejet the carburetor. And while I'm at it, I'll change the air intake because I don't really like that sponge filter. I'm gonna go to a velocity stack. Little things like that. Then, oh, you know what? The fuel line's kind of shitty. I might as well replace that too because it's old and it hasn't been done in a while. And oh yeah, guess what? Those are all different sizes. 5/16, 1/8, 1/4. What you want, what you need. Is it an AN certified line? Is it rated to the correct temperature and pressure specifications to even be a fuel or oil line? So, there's that. And then I also decided to replace foot pegs. Again, not as simple as you would think as far as how they mount and all of that goes. So, nothing about the simple replacements like the license plate frame and the brake light has been easy, but it'll all be worth it because it's going to be super cool when it's done. It's going to be a nice little hardtail bobber when it's done. Right now I'm waiting on a wiring harness to come today. I'm going to drill some holes right there for the blinker so it's not sitting there. It's going to mount directly to the frame on both sides. Obviously I need to finish mounting the fender up here, figure out how exactly I'm going to do that and incorporate the seat and the seat pan, and then whether or not I'm going to put the fuse box, rectifier and all that on the seat pan, or whether I'm going to put it back on that little metal plate right there. If I take it off my seat pan, or if I mount it on my seat pan, then I'd have to take off my cool little throwing knife that I have mounted in there. So you know, compromise. But like I said, it's gonna be sweet when it's done. The gas tank is, you know, and it is small. It is about the same as like a Frisco Sportster tank. It's right around 2 gallons, probably like 1.7 or so. And I thought about getting a new one, but why? Because I'm not gonna gain much in terms of capacity. And once I tidy up that wiring and everything and the fuel line, it's gonna just function better. So as you can see, this one has 2 petcocks. I'm not really sure why you would do that, especially do a thumper. Like, I get that you might want to deliver more fuel, but if someone could in the comments like educate me a little bit as to why so many tanks for smaller displacement motorcycles seem to have 2 petcocks, or the option of having 2 petcocks, and what the advantage or disadvantage to that is, because then you have to run another line and worry about, you know, filtering or not filtering that, and making sure that the connections are all, you know, perfectly sealed and all that good stuff. So it seems like more complication than one would really need with just the 1 petcock. I have a hard enough time petting 1 cock, let alone 2. Anyway, yeah. So I did get a new fuel line, like I said. I was gonna go with braided, but then I realized that that's just extra overkill. I don't know where it is right now, but it's a really nice black rubber one with the polished, nice screw-in clamps, not just the little squeeze clamps. Oh, there it is. There's the tubing anyway. And yeah, there's everything else. So I replaced the solenoid while I was at it also. That's another thing that got replaced. The battery still seems to be holding a decent charge. So even though it's old and ugly, probably continue to use that. This is the housing for my ignition. And I was wondering, maybe this is something else someone can comment on and let me know, how hard it would be to just go to a turnkey ignition like you would find in a car and just totally eliminate the need for a start kill switch on the right side of the bars completely, and just be able to just turn and go just like you would in a car. So yeah, if someone could let me know about that, that would be super, because the wiring situation has honestly been what has been the biggest bugaboo. That and not having the necessary tools, like a lift and a welder would be super handy too. But oh, and a spark plug wrench, for crying out loud. Who in the world puts a spark plug that deep inside of a cylinder? A fucking terrorist, that's who. That is crazy. So another helpful hint I need is, what size wrench can I get that will actually fit in there and fit around the spark plug? Because I'm not believing that you have to dismantle the cylinder to change the spark plug. If so, I'm probably just going to sell this bike, honestly, because that's just asinine. Doesn't mean that it isn't the way it is, but it's crazy. Crazy people. Why? Yeah, and then the exhaust, I don't have really too many options. I'm just going to clean up the pipe that I have, take that tape off, see if I can re-chrome the rusted underbelly of that, and then either reuse that chrome tip or get a new turnout chrome slip-on that will be shorter than that one, so it'll end up ending just before the front tire as opposed to around the brake drum where it ends now. I'm going to paint the frame black because eventually I want the fenders and tank to be like a maroon metallic red, real deep red with some gold pinstriping on it. But for now, obviously we have the two-tone blue and gray silver flake, which is not bad looking. But I think that the frame being black will pop, and originally I was going to do the engine casings and everything too, but I think them actually being gray will provide a nice contrast to the black frame. So I'm gonna do that while it's all apart too. So really all I'm waiting on that I need to make it run is to redo the wiring and figure out what I'm gonna do about this switch, because the right switch is totally dead. So I'd been bump starting the bike for like the last month that I was riding it before I took it apart anyways. And I've been fighting California on getting a motorcycle license, so it's been a good time to have the bike dismantled. But now it's time to put it back together and get her running again. I named this bike Loki. For those of you who don't know, Loki is a Norse god of mischief, a mythological god of mischief. And I had no idea that he is already depicted, or has been depicted, on a certain motorcycle social group's cut on their jacket, on their patch. It's Loki riding a motorcycle. I'm not going to name the club, because if you know, then you know, and if you don't, then you don't need to know. So, not trying to bite anyone's style, but yeah, I unknowingly had the bike named prior to that. So, this bike has been nothing but mischievous. It's definitely earned the name. It's my first motorcycle that I've owned, not the first one I learned to ride on. I learned to ride on V-twin American Muscle and 96 cubic centimeters of S&S goodness. But this bike was registered, functional, legal in terms of the lights and everything, and allowed me a lot more time to actually learn to even have a basis for comparison in different riding positions, different types of motorcycles, and the experience that changes. Because if you're not comfortable in the riding position that you're in other words, if you have some 16-inch ape hangers and forward controls, and you've only ever ridden like scramblers or BMX bikes or dirt bikes, it's gonna feel freaking awkward, and you might not like it, and you might not be comfortable, and if you jump in before you can swim, you might end up hurting yourself or the bike at the very least. So learning on something that's more comfortable, and this to me was because I was in more of a forward position, similar to what I was used to on my BMX race bikes and downhill mountain bikes and the dirt bikes that I had very little experience with prior to a motorcycle. So that position felt much more natural to me than did the beach cruiser style handlebar with forward foot controls and 800 pounds of just relaxed but beastly muscle. Loved the bike, definitely want another Harley, but this little thumper, because it's so easy to throw around and only weighs probably freaking 400 pounds, totally soaking wet, it's pretty user friendly. You feel a lot more confident in traffic, or at least I did, moving it around in tight spaces. The really slow speed maneuvering, like virtually no forward momentum, but doing U-turns and stuff like that. Learning the friction zone of your clutch. Being able to catch it if you stop in like a gravel parking lot and you slip a little bit. It's a little more forgiving. There's less consequence to worry about, I guess. If you make a mistake on a bike that's twice as powerful and weighty, stands to reason that the mistake might be doubly bad in terms of like accidentally dropping the clutch or dropping the bike or anything like that. So, and by the grace of God, none of that has happened yet. Knock on wood. I've used good judgment, pretty good judgment for me, in terms of when and where I've ridden. But I've also gotten some pretty good experience so far in terms of riding things that are not perfect, that you kind of have to be aware of, making those work, and then riding in conditions that are less than optimal on those things. Like these tires, they give kind of an off-road scrambler vibe, which is cool, I guess, if that's what you're going for. That's what came on the bike when I bought them. The first time that it rained a little bit in California, which is all it ever really does in California, is rains a little bit, and I was riding this thing, I think I probably soiled myself because this bike was moving laterally about as fast as it was moving linearly. So what I mean by that is it was moving all kinds of sideways and sliding on like the painted lines in the road and at intersections and stuff, and was not really wanting to track and corner that well. I did not trust it, having to lean it at all, turn it at any speed, and that's not a good feeling to have. So the tires are another thing that I want to change. Eventually, actually, the wheels are something I want to change because they're 19 inches front and rear, and I feel like this bike could have been two or more different things very well. Like, I think I could have made a badass tracker out of this, because like the 19-inch front and rear setup with those types of tires lends itself more towards that. If I hadn't received it in the hardtail configuration that it's in now, and it still had the swing arm with the dual suspension, could have put the seat up higher, and it would have looked a lot more like a little flat track racer and been pretty sweet at that. As it sits now, it doesn't look bad at all, but I think that if it had a 21-inch front wheel, or even if we kept that 19 and dropped to 16 in the back with like a 4-inch, 4.25-inch tire, as opposed to this, I think is 4 inches, but 19 inches in circumference. So shorter and fatter in the back, a little taller and more narrow in the front, which not only is it going to change the bike aesthetically, but in terms of the angles that you get from the rear tire to the seat to the tank to the bars to then the fork rake and the front wheel is going to look completely different with just the wheel change without even modifying the fork length. And I know there's probably a handful of people out there screaming, "You gotta lengthen the fork, bro, if you're gonna put a bigger wheel on it." I don't know if I'd want to do that. I don't really want a super raked out front end, but I may mathematically actually have to increase the travel a little bit to make it work. But I don't know, that's down the road. First things first, get it reassembled, street legal, and running, which isn't too far away, even though it looks like it might be now. But this has been one hell of a journey. I am glad that I got this motorcycle from the Harley that I started with, because it has opened my eyes to a world of motorcycles that I probably wouldn't have discovered any other way, right? Like the small displacement, chopper, cafe racer, custom builds, they are fucking cool, man. And I am at a point where I appreciate any motorcycle that's done well and has someone that just loves to ride it. That's what it's all about. Not what company makes it or what their CEO is doing, or, you know, what other social networks ride what types of motorcycle. Ride what you like. Ride what puts a smile on your face. And pretty much, as I like to say, if it's got at least one wheel or two boobies, I'm trying to ride it, and usually having a good time doing so. So I hope you're having a good time doing whatever you're doing. Smile, enjoy your day, put your energy into something worthwhile that will make you and or someone else happy. And until next time, click like and subscribe. Be good humans. Deuces.